The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. We got the gang back together. I feel real good about this.
Good.
Bob Bleier is here joining us, president of Camp Good Days. Say a word about it.
Oh, good. Happy to. Camp Good Days, a cancer camp for children with inflicted with the illness down on Keuka Lake. We've been doing it for 35 years now, and really great cause, helping thousands and thousands of kids over the years.
Yeah, we know the association LPGA for a long time had with Camp Good Days. It's good to see it still out there strong, and they got a good guy in fronting for it.
I'm loving it.
Mike Catalana, good to see you again.
Good to be back.
Pat Duffy, Bermuda Triangle.
Jim Haslett, baby, come on. It's a little bit snug, but it's, it's also uncomfortable. So we're going to get through this together.
Alrighty. Hey, the situation in Milwaukee this week, I think, bears taking a look at. This Josh Hader is a guy who, when he was 17-year-old, the tweets, they unearthed them. They weren't very flattering. The Milwaukee crowd gives him a standing ovation in response to all this stuff coming out. And we've seen this before. I mean, Ray Lewis was a serious situation. Do we just dismiss this, or as sports fans, how do we process
how do you wrap your arms around it, and you get your head around it as well? I think you're going to find more and more of that moving forward. As a parent, you try and teach your children, or as a coach, you try and teach your players, social media can never go away. And I think we're running into a new era of finding out really what people's character are like, really what they're about, how they think, how they act, how their family life is. And there's no way to avoid it because kids don't get it nowadays. So we're going to see more and more of this. We're seeing a lot of it now. I heard that in Milwaukee, only maybe 1 out of every 4 people stood. I think it's just a reflection of population and thoughts and theory. I don't think the entire stadium stood for him.
Yeah, there was a Milwaukee columnist that I read this week that just, an African-American columnist who dismissed Milwaukee, said, it's a racist city. They're backwards a racist city. It isn't that simple, though, is it?
No, it's not. And I think what happens sometimes with fans, everybody wants their point heard. They want their reaction felt. Okay, so the realistic way, if you want to support Hader, you want to say, okay, I think is no reaction. Is if you don't go after him, he's not booing him, you appreciate this part of it, that he did, at least publicly, say all the right things to make up for things that he did in his past. But the standing ovation, to me, is a notch farther. But I think it's inherent in people now. Again, social media and every other way, they want their voice heard. So instead of just quietly sitting there like in any other game, if he strikes a guy out, you clap for him. If he gives up a hit, you're not happy. They give him a standing ovation because they have to do something to show, quote, support. And I think that part is over the top. You don't have to boo the guy. You understand that there's something in the middle between this 17-year-old and what he sort of got caught, I guess, doing in the past. A standing ovation's a bit much.
Well, what are you giving an ovation to is the question.
Right,
are you giving an ovation to the guy? Okay, that's all well and good, but it's before he did anything. And it's not even like, to be fair, listen, I feel for the guy, right? We've all done stupid things as kids. This is a whole new world that we're living in right now. I don't agree with what he tweeted, obviously, but whatever. But it's not even like he came out, pointed out what he did and said, I'm sorry.
Yes.
He was caught.
Caught.
And
that's how it always is.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Okay, fine. Whatever. If this kid had come out and said, I was this horrible person, or I said these things when I was a kid, I now see the error of my ways, and I wish all of you could see this, that's standing ovation worthy. He got caught with a bad tweet while on the mound at the All-Star game, right? So
A 10-year-old bad tweet.
But listen, I will give him slack on that. They're I've done horrible things as a child, right, that I didn't understand at the time, and I give him that grace. I guess what it comes down to is that tribalism, right? If you don't like him because of what he did, and I like him, that means I must be okay also with what he did, and that's not true. And that's what we're going to see with LaShawn McCoy.
Full measure of credit. Unfinished business. 2 weeks ago, you brought up what you thought was a moral dilemma for you, father of a daughter, saying, I don't know how to deal with this, with McCoy.
Yeah, and I'm still at that right now, right? it's all up in the air. And there are people now, Mike, you see it on Twitter, who have decided he's not guilty because there have been no charges filed or he has nothing to do with it. We had a guy tweet our show the other day saying he's innocent. I know he's innocent. Why? Right. What has he done to give you the benefit of the doubt? I'm not saying he's guilty, but why would you put that kind of support and faith in a human being that you don't know because he wears a jersey that you enjoy?
But they will do it, right?
Oh,
if this all happens, he'll get a standing ovation the first home game he plays.
Isn't the word fan a form of fanatic?
It is, but normally that's based on activity on the field, less than it is showing. And again, I guess there's no way to show any nuance because nuance is long gone, right? Everything is 100% one way or the other. There's no nuance. You want to support your guy, and maybe it's because it's a Milwaukee, and maybe it's because it's a Buffalo. Maybe in a smaller place they want to support their guy. But if you think about it, if you talk to those people and said, what are you standing up for? I would be curious to hear why people said standing ovation for that. Again, as opposed to sit back and say, okay, that wasn't great, you apologize, good, move on, is a much more appropriate response, I think.
This is the Rochester Press Box, was presented by the Genesee Brew House, and we'll talk Buffalo Bills next. The Press Box, brought to you in part by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. Call 262-COMP, C-O-M-P, today. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House, and this portion brought to you by Connors and Ferris. I'll leave it wide open. The Bills are in town now. What are you looking forward to seeing the most?
Well, let's be honest. The biggest thing is the quarterbacks. Everybody wants to see how they play. And I said it to you months ago, once the draft was held, it is a legitimate competition. It's almost like we got a two-pronged competition going on right now. How does Josh Allen look? That is first and foremost. Whoever starts is a placeholder. We all know that. Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it a year? Whichever one of those guys likely starts, it's how long are they in there before Josh Allen is ready to go. But I do think it's legitimate. I think it's a legitimate thing. I think A.J. McCarron, based on the way spring went, got a little chip on his shoulder now, which he always seems to carry, because all of a sudden, like, Nate Peterman is the guy. I think Nate Peterman was slightly ahead going in at this point. They're both going to compete. I think it's going to be fun to see, and I think they can all show. I think they're going to look good. I think there's going to be actual competition. It's not going to be the lesser of three. Look, when Tyrod won the competition, he did, and he looked pretty good, but the other two were so bad that it was almost easy by the end to say, we got to give this guy a shot. He deserved it because he won. I think it's going to be a little better this time. I think it's going to be a fun competition.
Based on what, though? like the last competition, you had two guys that were at one point starting NFL quarterbacks in E.J. Manuel and Matt Castle. It's Nate Peterman and A.J. McCarron versus Josh Allen.
Well, they're still young guys, though. They're still young guys with something more to prove, whereas Matt Castle was past whatever version of prime that he had, and we had already seen E.J. fail.
You call me fanboy all the time.
Yes.
That is the most fanboy take I have ever heard
because I'm
in
telling
my life.
I like the competition because I think both of those guys, there is no destined number one. The only thing we know is that Josh Allen will eventually be the starting quarterback. And it's just a matter of how.
Do you think he's good enough to be the franchise quarterback over time?
Oh, that I really do. I think he has the physical ability. No question.
I don't know if I have the faith in the choice as
Well, if you're
we've
Bills
had
fan,
in
you
the
better
past.
hope, because they did.
Exactly.
They did this. They went all in on it.
But I agree with what Mike says. Like, I think the competition is going to be outstanding. It's going to make everybody better. I think it's going to make the position better.
Yeah.
It's going to get the team a little bit more confident.
What's he going through? I mean, you were an NFL quarterback and you had your first training camp. What's he going through?
I think the situation's a bit different.
Yeah,
My
and it
signing
is.
bonus was 0.001% of what he signed for. In any event,
You get $21 million.
But you see,
I
you got
think I had $210.
That's more than us.
Yeah, right. I think the butterflies are there, the pressure's there, the big stage is definitely there, and the expectation is there. It's a matter of how he responds. How mature is he mentally? How can he absorb the offense? Is it similar to what he had in college? There's so many factors that are going to determine how quickly he comes out of the gate. And if one of the veterans starts to play better, it'll take a little bit off of him. I truly believe that.
I agree with that.
But I mean, to your point, though, anytime you have a chance to run your 7th overall pick up against a guy who's thrown 7 career NFL interceptions and 2 1/4 quarters worth of work, I mean, you want to sit back and watch that brilliant quarterback competition.
But I don't think they're not judging Nate Peterman this spring on the game last year
I
against
would
the
sure
Chargers.
hope not.
Well, no, I'm saying is in terms of they're giving him the opportunity to come back this spring and try to play. Look, again, placeholders. We're not saying that these guys are longtime starters. I think to the point here of saying, let them play, let them see what happens, let Allen progress. Because let me tell you something, the offensive line is a scramble at the moment, and I've never seen a position worse than wide receiver at the moment going into this. They need to have a legitimate NFL team offensively on the field before you throw Allen out there.
You're out there live every morning. Give us something else that's caught your eye.
I am really interested to see what the backup running back position is going to look like, as lame as that sounds, because listen, Shady doesn't have a great reputation as far as staying on the field for the whole season. You do have, like we talked about before, could he be missing time this season because of his suspension? And he does need the occasional spell during games. I mean, and the older he gets, the more you want to limit him. Behind him does not look so great, where your only returning running back is Tywan Jones, if I'm not mistaken.
You got Chris Ivory, who's a veteran, who's been around, and I think in a limited role he can be good for them. And Trey Edmonds. I mean, I think every fan's going to want to see that kid. He's 20 years old. Just turned 20 years old. I think he's going to be
traded up first round to get him. Yeah, that's going to be fun. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House, and this portion brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Like it or not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Welcome back. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House. Let's talk Yankees. I had kind of an active week. Wasn't a great week for Gary Sanchez, was it?
Well, it was funny. When you weren't here, Toby Matika here a couple of weeks ago asked out loud, do you stick with Sanchez as your everyday catcher going into the trade deadline? And I think the answer is now, no. Like, poor guy does get hurt. He has that embarrassing national television game the other night. But, I mean, let's face it, as well as he's hitting, there are people that are claiming if he were to, like legitimate baseball people, if he were to stand up with his mitt between his legs, he would be playing defensive catcher better than he is right now. Like, the Yankees have to do something at the trade deadline to address that position if they're going to be a legitimate contender for a wild card spot moving forward.
The hustle issue hit him hard. I mean, was he DL'd for his own good, or do you think he's hurt?
I think it's a cop-out by the Yankees. I wonder if it's from Boone or Cashman or above. I think he's maybe a little banged up, but come on, that was lack of effort. You even see it on that last run to first base. When he finally wakes up, he starts to run again. I think they bailed him out a little bit. Interesting that Severino sort of went at him a little bit. That's when it'll change. And I want to see on this Yankees roster, who's the guy who's going to say something to him? Because I don't know if they have that guy on this roster.
That speaks well for Severino, don't you think?
I think he deserves it. Hey, you're my catcher. Show the effort. Look, we know he's not a great catcher, but you can show more effort than that. Slugger to sluggish is the way I look to him, and he was brutal in that game.
Well, here's the one thing I want to point out. I think I might look at a sporting event a little differently than most. I looked at how the clubhouse reacted after that, and if you look at what happened, every single player went up to him and touched him.
Yeah.
Every player. So I think the clubhouse knows what's going on behind the scenes, and I think the injury.
Touch Sanchez?
Yeah, exactly about him. I think they like him. They think he's a good player, a great teammate. something is missing, something is off, and I know the clubhouse understands it. So, I don't think it was a bailout. I don't know, Pat. Do you think it was a bailout?
Well,
I think he was injured. I think he
had
had some injury.
But they'll like it or not on the acquisition of Zach Britton by this team.
I'm okay with it, but I think they gave up too much. My understanding was it was more of a preventative. Yeah, he's a great player, but I think it might have been a preventative move so that he stays out of their division. They gave up 2 starters and a big righty reliever. I don't understand the move, but whoever understands the Yankees, or even the Patriots for that matter, why they make moves so other teams can't get players.
5 games back. Is it over?
No, I don't think it's over yet, but the Yankees' flaws show up. I really do think they do. They show up sometimes. So maybe they feel their way to win is just to crush people with the bullpen. Maybe that's the only thing. They've done that to some extent, but just to try to get a lead and lock it down, and that means no hesitation at all going to more guys. And if Chapman struggles at all, at least you have another guy who can go.
It was funny when they first started doing this several years ago. They didn't have the hitting to back it up, and now they can get a lead. So they certainly are dangerous. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is next.
Here is the MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Look at those guys, triumphing over the afternoon.
Because he went on a Dunkin' run and got $2 snacks. Hey, guys. Hey.
The Dunkin' Run menu. Delicious $2 afternoon snacks.
Hello, welcome back. This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Patrick.
What the hell are the Cleveland Cavaliers doing? You lose one of the best players of all time in LeBron James. Nothing you can do about that. It's terrible. I'm sorry. So, to remedy that issue, you give Kevin Love 5 years and $150 million to be your team leader. Kevin Love. Kevin Love can play basketball, don't get me wrong. In fact, his last year in Minnesota, he averaged 26 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists. And they won 39 games. Like Kevin Love, and that was, by the way, a better playing Kevin Love than one that exists right now. You cannot win in the NBA with a guy that is going to back somebody down from the point now. It just doesn't exist anymore. Not to mention, Kevin Love is not the most fiery guy on the planet. He's not very inspirational. Then you're surrounding him with J.R. Smith, Kyle Korver, and Tristan Thompson, guys that couldn't win with LeBron James on the team. The most value Love will ever have is right now. You could have gotten picks and tried to move forward. Instead, you committed $150 million to him. What are the Cavaliers doing?
And move forward by moving back, because what this does is make it more likely that they finish in that 8 to 10 range, which is death
it's
for teams.
death in the NBA. And to Pat's point, he's a guy who puts up the scariest guy. Good numbers on a bad team. It's what kills a franchise.
And he don't play D. He don't play D. Sorry.
Got some really, in my opinion, some good, pleasant news this weekend with what's going on over at Alabama and Nick Saban. Jalen Hurt was controversy on whether he was coming back to Alabama next year to play with Tuilogo, having such a great playoff run and helping Alabama win the national championship. So I was happy to hear that he said, Coach, I'm coming back. I want an education. I'm not leaving. I'm not transferring. In light of all the controversy throughout the season and with his father saying he's transferring, it was a really, really refreshing thing to hear from a large major college football program that the quarterback was committed to the team. That's where he signed. He still wants to play there and he's going to compete for the job. So I was very, very happy to hear that.
Is that in his long-term interest?
Not quite sure, but I think he made the right move as a young adult. And I don't know if it was a family decision or he override something that was done prior, but I think it's definitely the right move.
What I don't get is if he wants an education, why he's going back to Alabama.
True.
Low-hanging fruit.
Come on, that's the only fruit I eat.
All right, Pat was wondering about the old man moment. This is my old man moment here. And it's about Jimmy Garoppolo. Look, I know I can see him rolling his eyes at the moment. Jimmy Garoppolo goes out there, fine, you can do what you want. You're young, handsome, single guy, do whatever. Dating the porn star, Not a good look. You are the franchise quarterback. And here's the point I'm going to make. Everybody gives him a pass. Oh, we think it's so cool. Oh, Jimmy G, he can do what he wants. Let me tell you something. And I usually don't always go down that road. If it was Cam Newton doing that, he would be getting so much grief from everybody, not being a leader, not being the guy that the team wants to put out there. And Garoppolo seems to have gotten this pass after a few good games and a ton of money before he has really proven anything. It's going to be really interesting to see how he plays this year. He came in, did a great job for San Francisco, then got paid. Now he believes already that he is a superstar. So go ahead, date who you want, be who you want, but maybe you can do some things on the field before the off the field stuff.
Can you do it in one sentence?
I just find it funny. Tom Brady knocks up Bridget Moynihan and leaves her while she's still pregnant for Giselle. Nobody blinks an eye. Garoppolo goes on one date with a porn star. What is happening? The moral fiber of the NFL is destroyed.
All right, ending on a high point. I like that. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House, and this portion, Unfinished Business, is brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. Bob, good to have you back.
Awesome to be here.
Guys, it was fun. I have to crew back together again.
Fired up today, isn't he?
Something's going on, Mikey.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.